Hello everybody and welcome back to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. If you are a frequent viewer, thank you for watching, tuning into my channel, and if you are new, welcome to the channel. This is a channel where I make videos where I discuss some of the wonderful features of vintage sewing machines, the quality of which are no longer made anywhere in the world for home use. The good news is there are millions of them around this planet and they're waiting for service. They're waiting to be woken up and restored or overhauled or conserved, depending on the word you choose to use. I wanted to make a video today regarding Singer plugs and cords. Now, one of the great things about vintage sewing machine repair is that a number of brands, pardon the rattling there, that's me grabbing hold of something to show you. Of all the brands, and I mentioned this in other videos, I'd say the easiest brand to find parts for, and you can find parts for a number of brands, so don't worry if you don't have a Singer, but Singer sewing machines were made in such vast numbers that to this day you can get brand new replacement foot pedals. Here's an example of one. It's an electronic pedal, and this is a new reproduction Singer cord. Now this three-prong plug fits quite a few Singers over many decades in the vintage era, and you can see here it says made in Taiwan. And this piece is it feels like it's made of some sort of rubber vinyl product, and it is designed to work with a vast number of Singer vintage models. Now this particular reproduction plug is called a double lead, and what that simply is referring to is the fact that you have two leads, or basically two cords coming out of it. Okay, one of these cords goes to the foot pedal and the other one goes to the plug, which you of course plug into your outlet for power. Now, these work really well, and I offer them to clients who sometimes say, well, I'd like a different pedal. Other clients are very specific and they want the Singer button style pedal, which I'm going to talk about today in this video. But I wanted to show this to you because in addition to a new double lead, you can also get a new replacement single lead Singer plug, in which case you would see this, the plug, and one cord. Why one? Because this cord would follow, if you get a single lead, this cord simply goes to the outlet plug. You think, well, what about the foot pedal? Well, the foot pedal, and you can do this with a new foot pedal like this, or with the vintage pedal, which I'm going to do for the Singer 201 that I'm restoring. And more about that in a different video. That machine will be the last machine I overhaul for 2020. We'll see what 2021 brings, and with nicer weather, maybe we'll find some more sewing machines that need rescuing. But for now, I wanted to focus in on this because you can buy brand new plugs like this, and again with a single lead. And then whether you have a new pedal, or in this case I've got the old button style pedal sitting over here on the left, that can get, if you use the single lead plug, then you would wire in the foot pedal, new or vintage, to the terminal, the three-prong terminal on the Singer machine, or the in this case a Singer 201. And when you do that, and why was that done? Because this double lead seems like, it's just simpler and easier. Why bother? Well, Singer offered people the option of having a foot pedal that could be hardwired into the 3-pin terminal on the machine. And because of that, you could tuck in the foot pedal into the adapter that most Singer tables had, so you could use it as a knee lever and you wouldn't have to see that cord. Now, you still had to see the power cord coming out of the side of the machine to the wall, but it was all about making things look neat and tidy and pretending that there was not really a machine in your home, which I think it sounds silly today, but back then it was a big deal. Okay, so there's that. Now, having shown you what a double lead is, I'll show you the remains what do I have here? I have the remains of or what came with the Singer 201 that I'm going to restore. Now, what I've got for you here, I mentioned this to you guys before. Whenever you're working on particularly things you're disassembling, and particularly if they have small parts, it's nice to have something to catch those parts in, because things have a habit of slipping through your fingers and flying around, bouncing around. Some of these parts are really tiny, and crawling around on the floor looking for the one that fell is not fun. It can be a little comical, but it can slow you down in your progress. So I have here, this is a steel porcelain coated, porcelain enameled tray, and it's, I think these were originally made as meat trays, but if the meat trays had any defects, I think this one had a hole, which sometimes happens in the enameling process, and they were not considered food safe for that market, and so they were sold to an art supply place, and they make really good pans for dissolving like watercolors and things. And so I bought a couple of them, and I found it very useful for sewing machine overhaul procedures where I want to keep up with little parts. And to hopefully reduce the banging and the clanking that's about to happen in this video, I'm going to put this towel down. Maybe that'll help us a bit. Excuse me. The towel, by the way, if you don't have a pan, just putting a nice thick fluffy towel down is useful, because when something bounces on it, it doesn't always bounce off onto the floor. It's not guaranteed, but it certainly helps. And oftentimes the thick terry cloth looping in a towel will help catch things as they try to roll or bounce around. And that's useful to you. I promise you will be very happy you did this when that tiny little screw that you only have one of wants to go flying and you don't want to lose it. Okay, so what do we get? This is the foot pedal that came with the Singer 201 that I think I've introduced in a purchasing video. This is, of course, the incomparable, the all over the planet Singer button style foot pedal. They are one of the only foot pedals that I overhaul and restore. And of course, I'll be opening this one up, and I've shown the insides of these before. I'll be opening this one up, inspecting, making sure that the porcelain unit is in good shape and that it is clean and ready to be used. Now, but of greater concern is this. Now, you will notice this wrangling cord that I've gotten a hold of. Now, when I bought this, someone had, this is what I got. And this was originally a double lead, okay? And this is the original Singer plug. Now, the original Singer plug, unlike the new one that I just showed you, bring it back over here and I'll bring it up to compare them. This plug is made of some sort of rubber material, and it's not, you don't disassemble this, right? You use it until it's broken and you replace it, like everything else today. But I'm grateful that these exist, okay? So you don't have to chase down an old plug or have one rewired if you don't want to. And this can be a very nice, quick, economical solution. They don't cost that much. And if you get them from a reliable supplier, I found that they work wonderfully. The Singer 15 -90, I believe it's that I have for sale, has one of these. But I'm going back to restore the original plug on the 201. Some 201 and featherweight customers prefer them, and that's what they tell me. Let's see. Now, this is what I got when I received this machine. You'll notice that it's a double lead. Now, the double lead on the old plugs doesn't come in the sides. At least on this one, it goes into the center. And this one, unfortunately, must have gotten dropped at some point in its life, so there's a chunk of the old plastic missing. You can kind of see inside what we're about to open up and find. Now, some people would look at this and say, oh God, I'm not keeping this. And definitely we're not keeping the cord. You can see the insulation has worn off. This little rubber jacket that covered the whole cord, and now we're getting down into the inside of the wires, and this is what the inside of one of these old Singer cords looks like. You have the two wires. Each wire should have its own coating of insulation. This is not, this is not that brittle. I'm surprised it's actually flexible here. But do not be fooled, because when you see this, right, you're seeing dry rotting, aging, and sometimes you'll have an old cord. Parts of it may seem nice and flexible. You think, oh, that's not bad, right? But other parts of the cord, maybe they were exposed to more heat, I don't know, but they'll be more brittle, right? This one is flexing for me a little bit, but again, unless you have a vintage cord that's just in remarkably good shape, I normally tell people, you know what, let's go ahead and give it a new cord. Cords are cheap, and you know what, the cord has done its duty and it's tired. It's time to retire the old cord. And when I see this, that tells me I want to do that. Now, you might think, well, when you throw the cord away, you're not going to save this old plug, are you? Because you don't want to use it, because again, it's not insulated, right? We're missing the plastic that covered that metal piece. That's not safe to use, so we're not going to use that. But I'm not throwing this plug away, because like many vintage parts, it was designed to be disassembled, right? You can tell it was designed to be around a while. And there are valuable parts, because let's say you are going to overhaul more than one machine. Maybe you're interested, you don't know. But what happens if you get another machine and maybe it's this part that's cracked or broken, or maybe it's missing some of these very little special nuts and screws or nuts and bolts? Well, we're going to salvage this, okay? So that's the first thing we're going to do before we do anything, is to salvage what is in this plug, and then we'll also be opening up the plug, because I want you guys to see what's in it. Now, to my earlier point about the tray, guys, do this over somewhere you're not worried about dropping things, okay? It's very hard to hold on to this stuff sometimes, and you do not want something this small bouncing on your floor, I promise you. Or if it goes into a carpet, then you really can't find it. Notice my towel here is white, not brown. Just make life easier on ourselves. So I'm going to get a small screwdriver, do tiny little screws here. I'm just going to, again, holding it over. Let's zoom in here. I don't know how, there we go. So we're going to take these screws out, and of course this plug is going to open up for us, like so many vintage items that was designed for maintenance. Unlike the throwaway items most of us have no choice but to buy today when we buy new. And I'm just going to loosen these screws, and when I do, the little tiny hexagonal nuts are going to drop. And I've done this enough times to know that they will drop, and they will drop on the floor if you don't have this set up here. So learn from my former pain of having to chase little screws around on the floor. And now it could be sometimes when you undo these, if the little nuts are stuck there from dust and something, that might happen, but I can see they're loose already now. Watch what happens. I think they're just still screwed onto the screws themselves, but you can see them right there. So if I kind of hold still a little bit and turn this, I can keep the screw, the little nut is turning with the screw, so I want to hold it still so we can get it off the threads down there, and the nut will come loose. And there it goes. There it is, right there. We'll do the same with the other. I really want you guys to see inside. I know sometimes people think, gosh, he goes on and on about how things used to be made, and you know, the screws and all this stuff. I'm like, who cares? Well, when companies make new things today, they make them with as little input for longevity as possible. And we all know that. You guys know that from all the stuff you've bought over the years. Now, here's my two nuts. The two screws are here. The nuts are off. The screws should come out. Right? There's one. And these screws are unique to these plugs. Now, if you ever get one of these, plugs and you're missing the nuts and screws, you can buy them on the internet. But why not salvage them? Okay, so this is really interesting. Look at this. So here's the inside. Here's the half that's broken. I won't be saving this because I can't really think of anything I would do with that. But all the rest of this, the hardware, the little nuts, the screws, right? And then when I open this up, I will see, you can see how somebody put some kind of tape around this thing. I don't know what they were doing. But these little pieces of hardware are remarkable. They're brass, okay? Now this one, that wire, you can see that wire wasn't even all on that well, and it's a little green, so it's tarnished. But take a look. This, and I know it doesn't look pretty right now. It's not all polished. Sometimes you'll open these up and the brass just shines. But the point here is this little connector is all about a place to insert the wire. Now watch this. I don't know if I can turn it because I think it's stuck. But this is really stuck. I'll have to loosen it with some oil. But look at this. You see it's knurled. You see the textured end here? That is an actual, I guess you'd call it a nut or a screw of some sort. Anyway, it turns and it will come off. And as I loosen it, then I can get my wire in here to rewire this, the plug that I have to replace it. So again, when it's easy to say, oh, this thing's old, let's throw it away. Yeah, the old cord we're going to throw out. Okay, we're not salvaging that. But we're going to save the parts to the plug, and I have a little box that I keep such things in. And that's really neat because, well, this has been here a long time. It doesn't want to turn. I can salvage these and reuse them. What if I get a plug, open it up, and I've got everything except one of these little brass pieces is missing because somebody rewired it and they lost the brass piece and just, whatever the case may be, these are very valuable. And if you don't think you need these parts, maybe save them for someone and just offer them online. If you can't sell them, just give them away. Give them to a sewing repair shop. They may appreciate them. Waste not, want not. Just remembering my grandparents and how they were really fastidious about not being wasteful, and that was a lesson they tried to impart to us grandchildren who could not always appreciate what it was like to go through hard times in an earlier generation. So, okay, so what am I going to do? I'm not going to take these apart right now, but I want them off of here. Just going to clip them. Just clip off the end. If I get it in the right spot there. Okay, so I have got these three pieces. Look at everything I've salvaged here, guys. Quite a bit, right? I've got some nice little spare parts here for future plugs. So if I ever can't get a new reproduction plug, I can simply restore an old one, and if it's damaged, I'll have some good spares. Now, take a look at this. This is this is what they did to feed two cords into this thing, and then they've got them, tied together sort of in a knot. And this is not fun or easy to do when you have a new cord, right? I've tried to do it before, and I think I was successful once, but it was a real pain, and I wasn't a fan. So my plan now is to I'm going to rewire the replacement. I have an older replacement here that I'm going to use that I saved from a different machine because that customer wanted a newer foot pedal and plug. So I'm going to pull this. You can see it's quite a lot. Look at all these different wires they've got coming up through here. So it's quite a bit to manage and play with. So I'm going to cut these just to get these out more easily. Okay, so now this again will go in the trash with the broken half of the plug. But look, I have one half of a plug. These are very useful parts, or could be for me or someone else. I'll just hold on to them until I get another one I want to. I sometimes get people say, hey, I want the original plug, but it's broken or cracked. Well, if it's not this end, then we have a way to restore them. But this is not unusual for just about any consumer item from this era. Not just sewing machines. Things were made to be serviced, and when they broke, you took it apart and you fixed the part of the part that was broken. Unlike today. Okay, so we got a little pile of stuff here. So this will be being disposed of properly. And that and I will be saving these parts. We'll set those aside for another day, because I don't want to confuse the parts I just saved with what I'm about to do next. So I now have, here's my foot pedal, right? But I have no, it was cut, right? And this cord will be replaced. I've gone over this before, I believe. I'll be taking this old cord out and replacing it with new. But the focus of today is really is all about the plug and getting it wired. So you guys have seen the foot pedal. You've seen the plug. Now, here is the cord that was wired to the terminal of the machine that went to the, oh, I'm sorry, no, I misspoke. This is an example of a cord that was originally set up for a machine where it was hardwired. You think, oh, I've already got that. What's wrong with that? Why don't I just hook this to the plug? Well, we have to inspect it, and I've shown you guys before how to do that. Notice in the stress areas, like where the plug is, we know that's been bent a lot. You can see little hairline cracks there forming. It's dry rotted. Actually, it's worse on this side, so we're not going to use this. Now you say, oh, well, what about the rest of this? Does this look good? Not really. In fact, it's a little stiff, and I can tell, I can feel, you may not be able to hear it, but I can feel a little snapping inside where the wires, remember the insulation that's underneath this sort of black sort of jacket coating? Each wire has its own insulation, and it's brittle, it's cracking and no longer good. So this also ends up being disposed of. And so here, this is a good cord. Now this, of course, is a single lead. Now we can look at this one, and you will see this is one that I saved off a machine, the one I told you that the owner actually wanted the newer, they wanted the newer pedal and plug, and they didn't want it rewired to the old plug. They were happy with just the new setup, right? It was very quick and easy to use, but some of you prefer the older plugs. They're wonderful, Bakelite, and they're made quite well. And this, of course, is a single lead. You only see one cord being going into here as opposed to the two. So we're going to try to do this in front of the camera. I've done it before without making a video. I'm going to try to do it with the camera in front of me. We will see how that goes. And then we'll talk about these and what's wonderful about them. And if you're going to try to rewire one of these, I would start with a single lead instead of a two. I have yet to be able to get my fat fingers to get two cords wired into these. Obviously, they did it in the factory, and maybe the Singer service people knew how to do it. Maybe they had special tools, or maybe they just had a bigger brain than I've got. But whatever the reason, I'm not going to attempt a double. Okay, I'm simply going to do a single lead, which is what this is. We're going to take it back, but with a new cord. And this will plug into the machine and plug into the wall, and then the foot pedal will be wired into the 3-pin terminal of the machine itself. So let's take this apart, and we will see what we've got here. It should be very similar to what you just saw, only this, of course, this one's not broken. So I'll save my little salvaged parts here for another day, because I have had times when I really had to rely on parts that I'd saved. It's come back to save the day many times. So again, not a bad idea. And if you're not a sewing machine restorer, you've got extra parts you don't need, offer them online to people. People will take them. Maybe sometimes they'll buy them from you. But I try really hard never to throw those away, because if they're not valuable to me, they're valuable to someone. And you might just save another machine and keep it out of the landfill. Because people will toss things in the garbage if they think they're not going to be salvageable. I'm kind of wondering how many of these great old machines sit in landfills now, because, for years nobody paid attention to them. In the time before the internet and being able to see other people doing stuff like this. If maybe you had a reliable sewing repair place that would work on them for you, but again, I I don't even want to think about how many of these went to the dump way too early, simply because people thought they were not repairable. So we hopefully are beginning to appreciate that our ancestors were pretty clever and they're very smart with their resources. Okay, so you saw the two little nuts here drop, and I'm just going to be gentle. If it pulls on you, then you may have to turn the screws a little bit more. Just be patient. This thing's been sitting here for a long time. It may just be stuck. We'll see here. Remember, this is Bakelite, and it's very, the Bakelite, it obviously has lasted this long, but it's, even when it was new, Bakelite, as with any early plastic, Bakelite was hard, right? It was not a soft plastic. So, it can crack and break, just like glass. You want to be extra careful with it. Okay, let's get the little screws and the nuts. We'll set those over here for the moment. But I want to show you this, guys. And this is easier to see because it hasn't oxidized. You can see how they've got the wires, and they've done this. They've tied the wires this way as sort of a makeshift strain relief, right? It kind of helps so that when people are pulling, you should never pull on the plug, but people will do this. It prevents damaging the cord prematurely. Now, take a look at these little amazing little pieces, right? This is the inside of the plug that joins those prongs on the terminal of your Singer machine. But look at how they're made. They're brass, okay, and there's a little divot on this side because this, if you look here, you won't see the divot on here because it's underneath, right? That's where the little wire is going to come out. Maybe this is an easier way to illustrate it. You see the wire going underneath, right? So this we'll face that down. We'll put it in like this. And, just the quality of the construction of the darn plug it's just humbling when you think of all the cheap crap that we buy today. And I mean, this is, no one gets excited about electrical plugs, but it again is just more evidence of the care and the pride that once went into making things. And yes, they cared about cost and they cared about profit. Of course they did. They couldn't have been in business if they hadn't. But the customer had higher expectations, right? The expectations were high. Let's take this out again. Let's see if this one will turn for me. Ooh, this one does. The other one was stuck, but I wanted to show you. See this? It's knurled, it's textured so that you can grab it with your fingers, and look at that. So the wire, the end of the cord, the wire will come under this little indentation, right? There are threads here. You wrap the wire around the base, and then you snug it down with this. I barely get my fat fingers around it, but look at that. I mean, that's just a level of care and saying, okay, we want to make sure this is nice and secure, and we want to make it serviceable. They were planning for the future in a way that we just don't anymore. So anyway, okay, so you've kind of gotten an idea of the anatomy of the inside of these plugs. We'll put this back for a moment, and then we'll talk about how we're going to rewire it and why it matters how you rewire it. Stay tuned.